everybody, and welcome to North of 60. I'm Heidi Schweighofer. Today, my guest is Catherine Kilpatrick. Catherine started her career as a speech-language pathologist, but has transitioned into currently focusing on geriatric life enhancement and educational programs to enhance the quality of life of older adults. She is a contributor to Boomer Magazine. I knew that would be hard to say. And she has also recently started a monthly blog. Kathy came to our Hudson Senior Network in January as our Lunch and Learn presenter. And the feedback was wonderful. And to this day, there are many of us who hear her voice in our ears telling us to focus. So we're going to learn a lot today. Kathy, I'm so glad you're here. Can you believe your voice is in my ear?
Trust me, I have a few of those as well. But we won't talk about that tonight.
Let's talk about what you think of is brain health. What should we be thinking of as brain health?
Well, I think the neatest thing is that there has become, I did a program here many years ago on Memory Matters, the research that has come out about the end of Alzheimer's disease, and some professionals that have found that lifestyle choices are what really matter. I did home health for 35 years of my speech pathology experience, and sometimes I would identify memory and cognitive problems in the care partners. And you're giving them instruction. So when I think of brain health, it's the whole overall picture of how your memory's functioning, your focus and attention, your compensatory strategies, all of that. Because like the aging and life enhancement that I'm doing is we need to know, which we're going to talk about today, a few of the things that we need to pay attention to. But then what about the older person who starts having some decline and kind of retreats from everything because we're not meeting them at the level where they're functioning? So I think that's how I look at it from my perspective, as opposed to what the dictionary might say. It's your brain health. It's how you're functioning, your quality of life, how you remember, how you're safe. What do you need to do?
What are the signs and symptoms that you have seen in cognitive decline? Now I know it's, you can't remember things, but there's more than that.
Right. Well, dementia is the term that we hear, and that's an umbrella term. It's not a diagnosis per se. Alzheimer's, and there are many different kinds of that, are going on. Okay.
So dementia's the umbrella Alzheimer's is the
diagnosis, and then people with Parkinson's or various other things may have that, and there's just a whole list of them. But what we're looking at is where do we want to be in this overall picture?
And is it more than just, I can't remember where my keys are, I can't remember where my glasses are? Is it, I don't remember even what this item on the stove is? Is it
perfect?
I'm trying to what is the continuum, I guess, is the...
Well, what's interesting is people who start having word finding difficulties, excuse me, like a cashier at the one of the grocery stores, who looked like she was 20 years old, said, I think I have Alzheimer's.
Oh, my.
And there was nobody around, but I wanted to have a conversation with her. If you start planting that seed because it's in your family, the main reason us of the age that, we are younger, have problems is we're not paying attention, we're not focusing, or we're stressed. A guy stopped me in the airport and he saw that I was looking at something with Alzheimer's on it, and he asked me a question about his memory. First question I asked him is, what's your stress level? And he said, and then he started telling me all his problems. We need to look at the word finding and the misplacing things as maybe we're not paying attention. Maybe we don't have good habits, okay? But when you start to see someone getting confused, their reasoning, sometimes the only thing you see are behavior changes, type things. So they're very subtle and different in other people. That I can usually tell after working with someone for a little bit that, there's something more going on, but it's really subtle. Here's the problem, in my opinion, is we miss those folks.
Yep.
And they proceed into a level. So I worked with a patient that had a stroke, and I finally said to the daughter, do you think that she had some memory problems before? And she said, no, she was fine. After a couple of sessions, she said to me, you're right. So her mom had some cognitive impairment, maybe mild cognitive impairment, and then she had the stroke. And so that's a huge factor in the rehab process and the recommendations. So does that give you kind of an over?
And I will tell you that when we go through some things, I want you to focus on focus, because that, honestly, Kathy, if they hear no other message, I want that 5-second focus thing. That is like a lifesaver. It's a life changer for me, and now my husband too. So, all right. How can I keep my brain healthy? So I know there are some things, we're going to kind of go over some of them. Here's what I always hear about. Well, you should read. You should do puzzles. You should do those, word finder things. You can try a new craft, painting or sewing or whatever. Learn to play an instrument. That's another one. Of those things that we can do to strengthen our brain, what is important in that message in there?
It's so funny when you say what you just did and we hadn't rehearsed any of this. It's like, it makes me crazy when people say that, okay? Because the research, and there's like 6 other pillars, okay? But since you brought that one up, I'm going to talk about it.
Good.
Research shows you have to challenge your brain, okay? New learning. Learn about new things, okay? What ends up happening, I developed all these brain game products at different levels, for people to use. So the thing that would drive me crazy is when I would go in and see people, for therapy for a variety of reasons, and their big thing was doing the word search, okay? Well, that's fine, but nothing's happening up there that's challenging. You need to challenge your brain. So when I do the brain game programs, I'm always giving them, harder things to do. If they need hints, they need hints. But it's in challenging your brain and not always doing what you like, but getting out of your comfort zone in terms of what you're doing. If you're right-handed, also do it with your left hand, because it's,
that is hard to do.
It is. But just start with printing, and large capital letters and, that kind of thing. I've had stroke patients who have lost functioning and taught them. One guy ended up being able to do his checks and changed his signature on the signature card at the bank because he wanted to do that. Now, cursive, never mind, but printing, yeah, and usually it's large and then it can get smaller.
I'm a prolific reader. I read a certain, generally, type of book, fiction, current. But you said, get out of your comfort zone. So I've started to include some nonfiction. Woo, doesn't sound like much, but it is challenging to me because sometimes it's not as interesting or it doesn't flow as fast and I have to concentrate, concentrate more.
Pick subjects you like, or I listened during COVID, I was zoomed out, but on educational programs related to health things that I knew about that much about. But the other part is, tell what you learned to someone else.
Okay, now you mentioned that before, and that is something, so talk about what you're reading.
Right, to somebody else.
To my husband.
Yeah, or, find a like-minded person. I have a nurse friend, and I was calling her about an issue last night. And so we had this dialogue of different things that we had explored, go on and on. And so you find other friends would not be interested in that, but I have different friends with different
but
tastes. I'm able to do that.
All right.
Listen to podcasts that are of interest and then have a conversation with somebody else about it. So you're challenging. You have to remember. You have to concentrate. You have to focus, on what you were listening to.
So it's not just, try new stuff. And it's try new stuff, but also challenge yourself on the old stuff.
Right.
I'm going to start writing today with my left hand. I'm just going to force myself to
Go
do
back
it
to
a
simple
little-
puzzles. I even tell people doing word search. And you know, before we go on, my experience through all these years, it's all about attitude. And I can't help anybody if the attitude is not there. So like your group, the attitude was, what can I try? You know, if you only remember one thing and start on that,
Right.
you're going on a journey cognitively of trying to improve. Do we have 2 hours to talk?
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
I mean, I could.
I mean, I know you can, and I know I've got a million questions too. I want to talk about, now here are some things I read about online all the time, and they are lifestyle changes. And I don't think there is a day that goes by where you don't read a new study that says if you have 6,000 steps, you have this much increase in, you know, cognitive increase and all of this. Or if you eat a Mediterranean diet, or if you don't drink alcohol, or if you drink a glass of red wine or coffee, or it's just, I don't know what to listen to sometimes.
Right.
So what is your knowledge base about lifestyle things we can do, Kathy?
You know, there's some basic things that research supports. And then, so let's talk about diet, okay? Americans eat the sad diet. You know, it's just awful, awful stuff. So the biggest thing that I recommend to folks, I know too many people that are sugaraholics.
Oh, me
You've
too.
got to get rid of the sugar. You've got to get rid of the sugar. You were asking me before, you know, what things, you know, so you want to pay attention to that. I mean, we could talk for an hour on that, but we need to look at those recommendations. And in the book, The End of Alzheimer's, it talks about addressing these habits very early on when if you haven't already, and you're having some problems. When someone gets progressed in the disease process, you know, it's not going to help a lot. So we need to be paying attention. You know, we didn't know this stuff when we were in our 30s, okay?
And our parents didn't know this stuff.
Well, right. When I think of how I cooked for my family, I just go like,
Well,
oh my
I
God,
think of, I mean,
kind of
sugar,
But-
desserts every night.
But the pillars, we're talking about diet, okay? And if there's two things, because I don't want to leave the other one out, that if people don't get anything out of this talk, you have to do 8 glasses of water a day, okay? And that is so important. Patients who I have had where I can actually see that they aren't, and I had one guy who yelled at me, you know what you're talking about, lady, and his daughter brought in water, and I gave them a system. You know, you do 8 ounces when you get up, 8 ounces at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then 16 ounces between breakfast and lunch, and 16 ounces between lunch and dinner. That way you're not up all night, okay? And I walked in, and his daughter made sure he did it, and he looked at me and he says, you were right, because he had said he was tired, he didn't feel good, he'd just come home from the hospital. She got him hydrated. Friend of mine, the same thing. She said, her dad was in the hospital, and I kept, you know, hounding on his intake, and all he wanted to do was drink Sprite. One lady said she drank 2 pots of coffee a day.
That's what my father used to do.
and-
No water. He would take his pills with coffee.
Well, and the caffeine, I mean, you're dehydrated.
He would look like an insect.
Yep.
He was so
Yep. So,
dehydrated.
I mean, if you get nothing out of this and you don't want to, you know, pay attention, that's the most important thing. And the other thing, and because it's not in the pillar, but it's what I'm harping on now in my talks, the effect of memory and when you have a hearing loss is huge, huge. And so people that say, I don't need a hearing aid, and we could spend a lot of time on this, but this is my soapbox now. And I just did a talk recently, and several people came up to me and they said, I didn't realize that that would affect my brain. And I'm going, you're going on overtime, you're not hearing things, you're not safe. And so, you know, hydration and hearing, all these other pillars, exercise, sleep is hugely important, you know, your diet, paying attention, and you have to pay attention for 5 to 10 seconds.
I want to have you bring that up. That's the second thing I want everybody to get out of this today. Talk about focus. You used your glasses as an example, if you remember. You would put on new glasses and you had lost your old ones right before you came to speak to us or something like that. Good story. But what didn't you do? You didn't focus on where.
Well, we don't pay attention. We drop things
Yep.
and go on. And we don't focus. You have to pay attention to what you're doing. And if you're distracted, forget it. So I did a speech at Chautauqua one time, and everybody was leaving early because of the rain and the windows were behind me. I lost my entire audience because they're all thinking, maybe we should leave early too. And I'm like, yeah. So it is huge. There's a wonderful video on YouTube where it shows this lady, doing all her chores, and she'd do something and then she'd go to water the plants, but then she saw the Coke bottle, and so she put that, and that's what we do.
That is, do you know, I do
5
that.
to 10 second rule.
I get so thinking I can multitask all the time. Women, I think, are terrible at that.
Well,
we think we should be doing, let's get the dishes done, and then we have to walk the dog, and I've got to finish the laundry, and then I've got to, get on the computer, and we just, it's like everything whizzes by and you haven't paid attention to
So
what.
if you're not paying attention, that is huge, absolutely huge. But the 5 to 10 second rule. So when I take my glasses off, I'm thinking of the next thing I have to do, and then the phone rings, and then I go in the other room. So I need to look, okay? Look.
Where did I put my phone? That is my husband's daily question. Where did I put my phone? Where do you think you put your phone? Well, I don't remember, or I wouldn't be asking. That is.
Oh, I love Alexa. Alexa, call my phone.
Yeah.
And I'm in I'm in a place a third of the size of where I was years ago before cell phones. I just laugh, at least when we had them on the wall.
Yeah, you knew where they were.
Yeah, but no, that is totally key, and it can make a difference. And then what happens is your stress level goes up because you can't find something. Then if something is introduced to you while you're stressed out trying to find something, forget keeping that information in there.
That's exactly
right. It's like this.
Do you think people should be writing things down? I know I didn't ask you this, or this wasn't on any kind of piece of paper.
Only if it's a good system. I write things down, but I write so many things down because I'm doing so many things that you have to work a system with that.
So keep a list if a list is natural for you, and if you actually focus on the list.
My cell phone has a cover with a pocket in it.
Yeah.
And so if I think of things I need to do that day when I'm out and about, or some groceries I need to pick up, I take an old business card and write it on the back and stick it in there. And that's helpful because it's right there.
It's right there.
But everybody's system is different. I've actually started using the calendar on my phone, which I never did because I'm not working, and it's much harder being this free-spirited, semi-retired person with her fingers in so many, different things. So.
I bet. Tell me how important socialization is. I know I can understand it with a person with a mild or even major hearing loss, that one can become extraordinarily isolated. But what about those of us who are getting older and maybe it's cold out, or maybe we don't have a family in the area, and it's sort of an effort to get dressed nicely to go someplace, and
It's huge. It's huge because you're using your brain, the interaction, and so forth. I mean, the cognitive decline in the facilities that I do things for with some of the residents was huge during COVID. Now, I was fine because I was doing Zoom CEU programs. I was talking to people, and I have different friends with different interests. My family's not around here, so I had to create it, type thing, or have some things that I was watching that were not just, entertaining movies, but whatever. But again, it's all about attitude. And if you can tell people all the pillars, the sleep, the exercise, the stress reduction, etc. But if it's like, oh, we're all going to get old and have memory problems, and that breaks my heart. It's always been a sadness for me when I was doing home health and seeing that in folks.
like you might as well.
Yep. Yeah, so I love
plan.
it when I have an audience and people are just kind of sucking up the knowledge and want more, and I give them things to read and stuff. But, you know, in my private consultations, if I see some, or even in home health, you do what you can and then you realize it's not going to work here and stuff. So, you know, attitude is really important. But you asked about brain health. I came across this saying and I'm using it now. I don't know where I saw it. I was looking up something. Your brain, your choice. Your brain, your choice.
Wow.
Isn't that powerful?
Yeah, it is.
And if you're not choosing to,
Especially at my age, I mean, I'm 70, you know, and I'm thinking, this is my choice now for the next however many 30 years, hopefully,
but
that I live.
the habits that we establish that are crappy
Right,
happened decades and decades before, and then how do you change those habits?
right.
So it's, you know, I mean, it's an exciting adventure, I feel, to be in.
Oh,
And
I do
trying,
too.
I mean, there isn't anybody I can't talk to.
No, I can
And if
see
they
that.
find,
That's a good thing.
well, you know,
It's
I
very
mean,
easy
you know,
to talk to.
yeah, people are interested in it, and I can bring it down to a level. You know, we're taking it up higher. If I was doing a program for social workers and nurses, then I'm going to go into the research details,
Right.
you know, and how to assess people and so forth. But
What do, my father used to always say that because there was no genetic predisposition in our family from his parents or grandparents or whatever, he'll never have to worry about having dementia or Alzheimer's. Is there a genetic link to Alzheimer's? And how big a factor is that? I don't mean to have you have to go into a lot of
there is
research.
a gene that can pass things on, you know, for generation. But even some of the research with that, if you're catching the mild cognitive problems, you know, the things that are not more than the naming. I saw a woman one time and she was having trouble organizing her calendar and this, that, and another thing. Carrie, if you were talking to her, you'd think she was totally fine. But you could see all that organizational stuff becoming a problem for her.
That's exactly what happened with my parents. Inability to figure out their own medication. Then it was
So
inability.
whether you have a diagnosis or not, I mean,
Right.
and that's, to me, the scary part. We're living longer.
Right.
Families not in the area, which is what I saw. I was talking to families long distance to clue them in because they might have a hired care partner, but they're not, you know, the professional.
Right.
And I'm going, you know, you need this, this, and this because this is what's going on. So, I mean, I'm less worried about the genetic part as opposed to some of the habits that we've picked up, especially in eating the sugar, not drinking water, you know, things along that line.
My doctor is a water nut.
Good.
And has emphasized it.
Thank you.
And when I have compared lab values when I followed her instructions, and in a year when I didn't, it's amazing to see the
it really
difference
is.
just drinking 8 ounces or 8 glasses of water a day.
And nothing
Kathy-
else, or flavor the water with lemon. I had a gentleman that he needed it, and
There's
you know,
those hint drops too.
Right.
They have no calories.
you ever
but
tried, I was going to say coconut, I hate coconut, cucumber water? I was at a spa one time and and I said, what's in there? And they said, cucumber water. Oh my gosh, it's the most
Is it
refreshing
really?
thing. Yes.
What is it? Just slices of cucumber?
Well, and you can get one of those diffuser things
Oh,
and put it
yeah.
in there, get seedless cucumbers and put it in the refrigerator.
That'd be nice for the summer.
Absolutely.
All right, I will
Yep.
give
But
that a try.
you know, when I came back, this man said, "Oh my gosh, I love this. I'm going to drink this all the time."
I have heard and read that seniors, that we do not recognize thirst like a 30-year-old. That as you get older, the recognition of, am I thirsty, is often overlooked. That we think, well, yeah, I'm thirsty, but I'll just have a cup of coffee. Or I'm thirsty, but I don't really need, I'll take a sip or two of water. That was very interesting to me, and I sort of wondered if that was, I didn't validate it on research, but I have heard that time and time again, that there's a lack of recognition that, hey, I really do need to have a glass of water
Well, you're less
now.
active.
And we're less
all.
active.
But here, you know what the big problem is? You know, and I'm in these assisted living.
Availability.
No, I have to go to the bathroom too much.
Oh,
Huge,
I hear
huge,
that.
huge,
I
huge.
hear. I agree.
And I said, okay, your brain, your choice.
ooh, mean.
And no, I say it nicely, but I mean, I just discovered that phrase in something, and I thought, instead of me going on blah 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 about attitude. But here's the thing: I had a lady that was totally dehydrated, and her daughter was a fabulous caregiver. And I said, what you need to do is have something you can see through. 8 ounces isn't intimidating.
No, it isn't.
Do a half a dozen sips. During therapy, I kept reminding this lady, 1 bottle was gone. So you learn that habit. I don't want somebody to put something in something you can't see.
A big jug.
Because
and
you
then,
don't know where you are.
Well, and
Okay.
it's intimidating looking. Oh my God, I've got to drink
Yeah.
a quart of water.
Sometimes if I haven't, because I don't have a swallowing problem, and that's a biggie, I'll chug a half a glass of water because I'm going, oh my gosh, it's been a long time since I've had anything to drink. I can't, kind of thing. So,
I know this is hard to believe, but we are at.
are you kidding? We're only halfway through.
We are. We have 4 minutes left, Kathy.
Okay.
We are almost done.
Okay.
I know. When I talk to you, life whizzes by. I want you to say the 3 things that you think are the most important that any senior was going to get out of this program, and then give me 1 second when you're done, because I want to tell people the contact information for you.
Okay.
All right. 3 things.
Well, I think I kind of highlighted them because people are less aware. Hearing loss.
Yeah.
Get your hearing tested. If you need a hearing aid, your brain, your choice, you might really seriously want to look into that. And the hydration. I mean, those are 2 things. And then, and then sugar content or other things that might not be good for you. But,
Lots of alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely.
know.
I mean, you need to exercise, and that's a whole
Walk.
program.
Just walk.
Yeah, sleep, don't, be using technology before you go to bed. Stress, if a 30-year-old is stressed, they may exhibit the same problems as someone with some mild memory loss because you can't focus because you're not paying attention. I mean,
So at the end of this show, when we are done, there will be some information in print, and you will have access to how to reach her in whatever way you display, whether it's your phone number or an email address or both. You'll have access to information about her blog and information about how to reach her for any of the books, the puzzles, the brain games, or anything else that you want to have. And I would highly recommend you do some research after the show is done.
This particular book, Walking the Path to Memory Fitness, covers all those pillars in more detail.
Good.
Just
All
an
right.
FYI.
All right. This is North of 60. Thank you so much for watching, and look for the information about Kathy after we say goodbye. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. And thank you for coming.
This was fun.